Om. 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 Om Sahana Vavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Saha Viryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Vakratunda Mahakaya Suryakoti Samaprabha Nirvignam Kurume Deva Sarvakaryeshu Sarvada. Saraswati Namastubhyam Varade Kamarupini Vidyarambham Karishyami Siddhir Bhavatu Me Sada. Samasta Jana Kalyani Niratam Karunamayam Namami Chinmayam Devam Satgurum Brahma Vidvaram Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangum Lankhayate Girim Yatkripatamaham Bande Paramananda Madhavam Paramananda Madhavam. We'll read verses 10, 11, and 12. Sahayagnya praja srishtva purovacha prajapatihi anena prasavishyadvam eshavostvishta kamadhuka devan bhavayatanena te deva bhavayantu vaha parasparam bhavayantaha Shreyah paramavapsyatha. Ishtan bhogan hivo devaha dasyante yajna bhavitaha tairdattana pradayebhyaha yo bhunte stena eva saha. So we are in a very beautiful topic of Karma Yoga. And in this Karma Yoga, Lord Krishna is telling Arjuna, this is how the world has been created. Arjuna, let's not lose the train of thought. Arjuna, he is going through this dilemma. Should he fight the war? Should he not fight the war? And, why not take up Jnana Yoga? And Lord Krishna said, you purify the mind first. How do you purify the mind? Through Karma Yoga. What is Karma Yoga? It's dedicating our actions to the higher, being an instrument, and accepting whatever we receive as prasad. And in what spirit should I perform this Karma Yoga? How do I dedicate it? In the spirit of Yajna. What if I feel like I don't need to do Karma Yoga? I mean, why do I need to give back to society? So Lord Krishna says, listen, this is how the world was created. It was created with the spirit of sacrifice. We see in verse number 11. He says, verse number 10, so he says, he, Prajapati, created the world Sahayagnya. And so we saw that there are these 5 yagnyas with which the world was created. Deva Yajna, or that sacrifice towards the gods. Brahma Yajna, Rishi Yajna, that sacrifice towards the rishis, towards the great teachers or Guru Parampara. We have Pitra Yajna, or that sacrifice towards our ancestors. Nr or Manushya Yajna, that sacrifice towards other beings. And Bhuta Yajna, that's sacrificed towards nature, animals, birds, etc. So he said that he created us with this spirit of sacrifice, meaning that everyone together nourishes each other. In verse number 11, we saw parasparam bhavayantaha. Each one nourishes each other. So when we offer prayers, when we worship God, God returns those prayers with what we call grace. We walk towards God, and what we receive is grace. When we worship the rishis by studying the scriptures, by sharing them, by actually trying to live them, what do we get? We get moksha. So they nourish us, they give us moksha. When we worship our ancestors by preserving our culture, our language, our music, our food, all of our customs, what do we get? We get chitta shuddhi, or purity of mind, because that's what culture gives us. Culture, practicing culture, or beautiful rich traditions, they purify our mind. Then when we worship other people, when we worship other beings, what do we get? They also, in return, they reciprocate. They also help us when we're in need. And when we worship nature and animals and plants, they also reciprocate. They also protect us. The trees and us, we have a very beautiful relationship, right? We inhale oxygen and we need to let out carbon dioxide, while the trees give oxygen and they need to take in carbon dioxide. So we nurture each other, we nourish each other. Parasparam bhavayantaha. And so when we have this spirit, then everyone prospers. And this is how the world was created, with this spirit of sacrifice, knowing that we've received so much from many sources, so now we give back into the cycle. It's not necessary that we give back to the person that has given us, because sometimes we can't determine that. Or sometimes we don't know who it is, or sometimes we have no capacity to return in that same way. But what's essential is we give back to this cycle. Parasparam bhavayantaha, as said in verse number 11. Parasparam. Parasparam means one another. Bhavayantaha, nourishing one another. What happens? Shreyam param avapsyatha. Shreyaha, that ultimate good, param, the highest good, avapsyatha, one shall attain the highest good. So this is the yajna spirit, when we nourish each other. Now note that it says shreyaha param avapsyatha. Some people may nourish each other and actually do wrong things. You help me steal this and I'll help you steal that. You know, I'll give you this deal and then you give me that deal, and in that way we will break through the system. That is not the spirit of yajna. Although that's nourishing each other, helping each other, that's not yajna spirit, because here it says shreyaha. The key word here is shreyaha, that which is absolute good. So then what happens is, there are people who break this cycle. And we saw this in verse 12. We just introduced verse 12 last time. They are called thieves. So let's take a look at verse 12. Ishtan bhogan. Ishtan, those desired bhogan, objects. He indeed, vaha, to you, devaha dasyante. So when we perform yajna, when we perform these sacrifices, we will get the results of them. That's for sure. The devatas will give us those results. And yajna bhavitaha, so those devatas or devas are yajna bhavitaha. They are nourished by our sacrifice. But taihi dattan apradaya, by them, dattan, what was given by the devatas, those who are apradaya, those who, without offering back, ebhyaha, to them, without offering back to the devatas, yaha bhunte, the one who enjoys, stena eva saha is a thief. This person is a thief. So the devas, nourished by the sacrifice, will give you the desired objects. Indeed, he who enjoys objects given by the devas without offering in return to them is a thief. So what do we mean by this? So there are some people that offer sacrifices to the devatas, and then when the devatas give back, they either consume everything for themselves. This is one kind of person, and they don't want to share. This will be in the next verse. But they're also, the ones that they offer, they enjoy most of it, and then they don't even want to give anything, even little bit. They don't want to give anything. They don't want to give back to the system. So this person who just keeps taking and taking and taking without giving back, this is called thief. And it is also possible that this person didn't give in the system. When there is one good person, when there's one good person in an area, the whole area flourishes. So for example, in this verse, you can also take this case wherein this person did not do anything, nothing for the system. But because there is one good person, because of their sacrifice, because of their tapasya, the place is very prosperous. Everything's blooming, everything's going well. But what happens with nature is it's not selective. So it's not like it's just going to rain on my head or it's going to just rain on your head. It will rain on everyone's head. So even the one, what we're talking about here is even the one who did not give, the one who does not give into the system, they will still get. They will still get because that's how nature works. That's how the cycle works, right? So even those who evade taxes, not pay taxes, they'll still get the benefits of the government because it will go out to everybody. So there are people like this, that even that sacrifice, they don't perform. They don't perform, but they get benefits and still they don't even want to give. In Mahabharata, I don't know if you remember, but when they were looking for where the Pandavas could be in the 13th year, where could the Pandavas be? And it was said that if you want to find Yudhishthira, you look for a place where the rains are on time, where the crops are healthy, where the fruits are sweet, where the flowers are beautiful, where the people are really, really prospering. In that place, there will be Yudhishthira. So even if one person does yajna to its fullest, the whole place can prosper and everyone will benefit. Those who are doing, but also those who are not doing. But the contrary is also understood. If one person does so much damage, then everybody around that person can also get affected. Whether they are contributing to that or not contributing to that, they will get affected. So this is what happens in society. We see that even one person or a group of people can really affect. So now let us come back to this verse. So somebody who's really not contributing to the system and then taking from the system, and that person doesn't want to give anything back, does not even want to share anything, that person is called stena or thief. Now, why would someone have this attitude? So let's just explore why people would have this attitude. The first reason could be that they feel that they have to feed their families and they have to, accommodate their household expenses and everything. So they might not have enough to give. So they feel like everything that they get should only sustain their family. Now here we see that there's a very narrow vision. And the vision is that my family is my community. This is the vision. But when we come to yajna, my family is not my community. The whole cosmos is my community. And in yajna, there is no such fear that if I give, what will happen? Will I get something back? This is what people think. If I give, will I get back? And here, giving, remember, giving means what is our unique ability or capacity? What is our swadharma? That is what we give. So for some people, it may be a talent. For some, it's knowledge. For some, it's food. For some, it's wealth. Whatever we have that's unique to us, that we have in plenty, that we should give. So they feel like, no, it should only stay with the family and not anywhere else. It should not go out. For sure, this person will lose money. For sure. That is the law. Because Mata Lakshmi doesn't stay with such people. Puja Gurudev said that when you serve the feet of Narayana, Lakshmi Mata will always follow. Which means that whenever we are engaged in service, in the welfare of all beings, wealth will come. It will come. That is the law of God. That no one can go against. And if we want to try it out, we should test it. We should test it, right? There's this story that happens between Arjuna and Krishna that illustrates this point. There was one beggar, and this beggar, he was like poor. He was poor. He was from the village, and so he went to beg from Arjuna. Of course, because if you have to beg, you beg from Arjuna, the Kshatriya. And so Arjuna said, okay, I'll give you a bag of gold coins. So now this man was very happy. Of course, if you get a bag of gold coins, you're so happy, ecstatic. So he's walking with his bag of gold coins. Obviously, he didn't know, he was overjoyed, and a thief saw him. So then he stole the bag of gold coins. And so this beggar went home and he was just miserable. He was miserable because he got wealth finally, but it was stolen. The next day, he decides to go back to Arjuna. And he goes back to Arjuna and he says, Arjuna, this happened. The coins you gave me, they got stolen. Arjuna felt so bad. He said, okay, I'll give you a diamond. A diamond, because then you hide it properly. Don't go and display it and attract attention and all of that. You hide it properly. So he said, okay, I'll hide it properly. So he goes to his home and he's thinking where to hide this diamond. People always thinking where to hide the wealth. And so he looks and he sees in the kitchen, there's this unused pot. This pot hasn't been used in years. So he said, let me just put the diamond there and nicely I'll go to sleep. Now what happened the next morning? The wife, she gets up very early. She gets up very early because she goes and she brings water. She goes to the river, she brings water home. But on the way back, the pot that she brought, it broke. So now she went home and she was looking for another pot. So guess which pot she got? She got the pot with the diamond, but she didn't know that there's an out. She didn't know. She just got the pot. She got the pot. She brought it to the river, and she put it in the water, and she brought the pot home. And this beggar, he woke up and he said, "What happened? Where's the pot?" And she said, "Well, I went and I took water. Why? What happened?" He said, "There was a diamond there." And she looked and she said, "Well, now there's no diamond. What are you going to do? I didn't know. You didn't tell me." So therefore, husbands should never keep secrets from their wives. But that's not the point of the story. So anyway, he said, now what to do? This is my prarabdha. My prarabdha is that now no wealth. I lost the diamond also. So the wife said, why don't you go now? Don't go to Arjuna. you go to Sri Krishna. You go to Sri Krishna. He said, okay, fine. 3 times, third time. After 3 times, one should not do anything anymore. One should not ask. He said, third time. Then he goes to Sri Krishna. And he tells Bhagavan Krishna, now this happened. Now, I lost the gold coins. It was stolen from me. The diamond was lost. Now I have nothing. And will you please give me something? So Bhagavan Krishna said, okay, I'll give you 2 rupees. 2 rupees. And he said, okay, fine. This is all I'm going to get. And Arjuna looked at Bhagavan Krishna. What is this 2 rupees? How can you give him only 2 rupees? Anyway, he took the 2 rupees. And he was just thinking about his fate, how unfortunate he was. Here he had wealth, and then it just got taken away. 2 rupees he had. Then he was looking in the river, and there was a fish, struggling because the fisherman was taking the fish out of the water, and the fish was struggling. So this beggar said, I have 2 rupees. It won't do me anything. I might as well just buy that fish and save that fish's life, put that fish back in water. I'll just buy that fish, because the fish he could see was struggling, just moving, shaking, struggling. So anyway, he went there and he bought that fish. And then when he was about to put the fish in water, he noticed that there was something solid in the fish's mouth. And what was that? It was the diamond. And so he took out the diamond and he said, oh my God, I got it. And just at that time, when he said that, the thief who had taken away the gold coins was very nervous. And he heard, I caught him. He heard that. And so the thief was very, very nervous that he would get executed or something. So he returned the gold coins. He said, I'm so sorry, I stole this. These are your gold coins. And this beggar just, was so shocked. He got back the diamond and he got back the gold coins. And he was so shocked, he went to Sri Krishna and he said, this is what happened. And Sri Krishna blessed him. And then after the beggar left, Arjuna said, what happened? How did your 2 pennies, 2 rupees work, but my diamond and gold didn't work? He said, it's not that. When the beggar was begging for the diamond and the gold, he was thinking only for himself. And when one thinks only for themselves, the wealth will go. It will go. But when I gave him the 2 rupees, he started thinking about others. And when he did that, then wealth came back to him. And that is how I take care of my devotees. So that is Sri Krishna. So sometimes people feel like if I want to hoard everything because there's no faith. But here it says in the Bhagavad Gita, let it go. Of course, keep whatever we need, but let it go. Let it get back into the system and it will come back to us in some shape, in some way, in some form. So people feel like that. They feel like, oh, I shouldn't give because I won't get anything. Some people also feel that if I don't give, if I give to the system, it won't make much of a difference. And many people have this mentality like, look, poverty is never going to be fixed, right? Corruption is never going to be fixed. All these issues they're never going to be fixed. So why should I help the cause of poverty? Why should I help the cause of hunger? Why? Why should I help? Why should I donate towards that? Because it's never going to be fixed. But here we see that even if we don't have complete control of the situation, we can still contribute. Every little thing makes a difference. We saw earlier, I explained to you, one Yudhishthira, and the whole area is flourishing. One somebody else, and then the whole area goes down. So every single person can contribute. We may not be able to control everything completely, but everyone can contribute, and that can make a change. And we've seen enough examples where people sign petitions and actually laws happen. So this feeling shouldn't come that this cause is hopeless anyway, so why should I contribute towards it? Then another reason may come is it's not my responsibility. It's the government's responsibility to do all of this. That's how some people also feel. But remember, we were born with sacrifice. We are included in that. The government is us. Don't think the government is a body or somewhere in White House. We are the government also. It's for the people, by the people, right? So it's also our responsibility. So this thing, of Stena, this person who wants to be a thief, they are rooted in what is called selfishness. They're rooted in selfishness. And when one is rooted in selfishness, they really, really suffer. And how they'll suffer, we will see in the next verse. But so this is what this verse is saying. That even people who don't contribute, even when they get something back, because the yajna will come to everybody, the prasad will come to everybody, they keep everything for themselves. They don't want to share because they feel like it's not their responsibility. They feel like, well, things will never change anyway, and they feel like they should just look after their own needs. Those people are considered stena, thieves. And now how does selfishness affect them? Let us see now verse number 13. Okay. All right. So there are some questions here. I will answer later. Yeah, I will answer later. Okay. All right. Yajnashishtashinas santaha.
Yajnashishtashinas santaha.
Muchyante sarvakilbishaihi.
Muchyante sarvakilbishaihi.
Bhunjate te tvagam papaha.
Bhunjate te tvagam papaha.
Ye pachantyatmakaranat.
Ye pachantyatmakaranat.
Yajnashishtashinas santaha. Muchyante sarvakilbishaihi. Bhunjate te tvagam papaha. Ye pachantyatmakaranat. There are two comments in here that the volume is low. Is it slow? Okay. Okay. It's okay. Just give me a thumbs up if everything's okay. Okay. So those who messaged me on chat, please check your audio and please see if that can be fixed. Okay. All right. Okay. Now, what does it say? Now here it makes a comparison. Yajnashishtashiнаha. Yajnashishtashiнаha, those who eat the remnants of sacrifices. Santaha, the righteous. Muchyante sarvakilbishaihi. Muchyante, they are freed. Sarvakilbishaihi, from all sins. But they, those who are papaha, those who are sinful, why are they sinful? Pachanti, they cook. Atmakaranat, for their own sake. They cook for their own sake. What happens to them? Bunjate, they eat agam, they eat sin. So the righteous who eat the remnants of the sacrifices are freed from all sins. But those sinful ones who cook food for their own sake verily but eat sin. So when a yajna happens, So now this is the other scenario, right? This scenario, as I said, is the one who, yes, worked in the system, gave what they could to the system. But when they get back whatever the results are, they didn't share. So let's say we worked into the system, we got, our talents became nourished. We didn't share that. We worked in the system, our knowledge became nourished. We didn't share. Our wealth became nourished. We didn't share. So when we work in the system and we offer it as yajna, we will get back results. We will get back prasada. But even that prasada has to be shared. So here, who's considered a santaha, a saint or a righteous person? Yajna shishtashinaha. Ashinaha, the one who eats, shishta, the remnants of yajna. So when we do work, the first thing we have to do is when we get something, whatever we got, to see who needs it, where is it required, and then the remnants of it that we take. That's called yajna shishtashinaha. And these people are freed from their sins. So this is exemplified in many ways. One is in our tradition, in our Sanatana Dharma tradition, when people eat, before people eat, they sprinkle water. And what they do is they keep 5 portions aside and then they eat. And those 5 portions are offering to the 5 yajnas. Deva yajna, Rishi yajna, Pitra yajna, Bhuta yajna, Nra yajna. And then they eat. So it's a symbol that whatever I have, let me first give to those who need, let me make my offerings, and then let me eat. Also, sometimes in our tradition, what we do is we offer to Bhagavan, right? We offer that food as naivedyam. And naivedyam, and we do the pranaya swaha, panaya swaha. That's also 5. Pranaya swaha, apanaya swaha, vyanaya swaha, udanaya swaha, samanaya swaha. 5 yajnas we offer to Bhagavan. And we're mindful that this is from God, and let me offer everything to God. Then whatever remains back, that is called prasad, and let me eat that. That's yajna shishtashinaha. Sometimes when a saint or Mahatma is there, like Puja Gurudev, everybody would be so eager after he would eat because they would want the leftovers of his plate, literally, because that's considered yajna shishtashinaha. So when we eat, it's not yajna shishtashinaha. When they eat and there's a remnants on their plate, it's called yajna shishtashinaha. So that's the idea, that when we live this way, whatever we receive, first we see to it that we make those offerings, those yajna offerings, and then we use whatever is required for our living. How do we make those offerings? So we saw last time also, for devatas, for God, by prayer, by worship. The rishis, by studying the scriptures. To the other beings, by helping whoever needs help, by helping them. To the beings, by living simply, animals and nature, by living simply. To our ancestors, by upholding their traditions. So when we feel that we've made these offerings, then we can enjoy the rest of it. And how? Sarva kilvishehi muchyante, freed from all of our sins. This means that when we do our dharma, we are very peaceful. We're very peaceful inside. Freed from sins means we become peaceful and we develop this quality called selflessness. Selflessness means being free from sin because it gives us a lot of purity. We'll see the next line and then I'll tell you the difference between selfishness and selflessness and why both are important. The next line, he says, those who cook for themselves. Now, whatever they get, they just keep for themselves. They just keep for themselves. And this is also seen that, some people are not mindful at all who's there, who's not there, and they just take whatever it is for themselves, hoard for themselves. This happened also in COVID time, right? So many people, toilet paper for themselves, 6 rolls, 7 rolls, but what about everybody else? Hand sanitizer for themselves, but what about everybody else? Hoarding everything for themselves, and not even thinking, does anybody else need something? Do other people require it? No such thought comes. And so those who cook for themselves means just take for themselves without even thinking about other people. Then papaha, they are called papaha. They are called the sinful ones. And te bunjate agam. They eat sin. What do we mean by they eat sin? Is they develop selfishness. Now, let's see selfishness versus selflessness. What is this selfishness? It's important to know this because we all have it. We all have it. And only when we know what we have, then we can get out of it. Selfishness is this mindset that I am the most important being in the world. I am more important than everybody else. And this mindset makes us very insensitive to the needs of others, insensitive to the people around us, insensitive to what's happening, period. And when we develop this selfishness, all that we're thinking about is what I want, what I need, what I like, what I don't like. And we feel that the whole world should revolve around us, not taking into account anything. So when we become selfish, we are not able to relate to other people. We're not able to understand what they're feeling, what they're going through. And if they have any problem or any situation, we flip it around. We're not listening to them. We're saying, yeah, that also happened to me. And in my case, I felt like this, I felt like that. And every single conversation we have flips back to us. This is what we call selfishness. Every single thing that we do is to only enrich the ego. This is when we know we have selfishness. Everything is fueling up that ego, just making it bigger and bigger and bigger. Because whenever we think of I need, I want, I like, I don't like, this makes the ego very, very, very big. Very big. And when the ego is very big, it's very hard to go past the ego, to transcend the ego. That's not going to happen. But on the other hand, selflessness. When we develop this understanding that we're part of a cosmic cycle, and whatever we do affects everybody else, and whatever we get, we can use to give back into the system again, because it's a cycle. It goes round and round and round. Imagine if in my whole body, if I ate food and I kept it in my mouth, just like this, what would happen? Every other part of my body would suffer. Even the mouth would suffer. How long can you keep food like that, right? So it's as though you're stopping the whole system by just taking and not giving and circulating. So when I don't give back to society, to the community, it's like eating food, I'm keeping it in my mouth. And everything is deprived of nutrition because of me. And remember, the whole world is one whole body. This we will see in chapter 11 very beautifully, Vishwarupa Darshan, when we come to it. The whole world is God's body. So we are all one body. We're not separate. This notion that we are separate is called ignorance. And that's what selfishness is based on. A selfish person thinks, you're different from me, and we are separate. A selfless person understands that how can we be different? In your body, there's air. In my body, there's air. In your body, there's water. In my body, there's water. In your body, there's fire. In my body, there's fire. Everything that's in your body is exactly in my body. And I cannot be separate from air. I cannot be separate from fire or water. All are one with me. Because if you take away air from me, I'm gone. What only appears to be different is this name and form. But even in the elemental perspective, we are one. We are fire, we are earth, we are water, we are space. We are all of that. And we cannot deny that. That's our direct experience. So one who is selfless has understood that we are all really innately one. And with one who is selfless, they understand that everything functions better together. And it's not the character over the cosmos, it's the cosmos over the character. In other words, it's the vision over the self. Everything is about the grander vision. It's not about what I want, what I need, what I like. It's about the grander vision. What does the system need? What is best for totality? It shifts. It shifts from this character of the ego to the cosmos. And I develop this cosmic vision. That is called selflessness. And when one becomes selfless, what happens is the ego diminishes. Because the ego strives on I. But the ego diminishes on we. That's why it's called illness. Illness is when I'm thinking I. Wellness is when I'm thinking we. That's wellness. That's how we get to well, when we understand that we're all part of greater harmony. So when the ego diminishes, then we can transcend it. Otherwise, it's very difficult. So that's why in this verse, it says the one who cooks and eats for themselves, the one who works and just takes for themselves, does and just keeps for themselves, they are called, they eat sin. They eat the sin of selfishness. And it becomes very difficult to transcend the ego. But those who eat the remnants of that yajna shishtashina, they are able to transcend the ego. Gurudev gives a very beautiful example that always sticks in my mind. He says, selfishness is like this. It's like taking a teaspoon of salt, or maybe you say let's say a cup of salt, and you put it in a bucket of water. And the salt is the ego. Huh? Take a cup of salt and you put it in a bucket of water. And what happens? The water will taste salty, right? But if you take a cup of salt and you put it in a pond of water, we'll barely feel that salt. So taking that cup of salt, putting it in a bucket of water is selfishness. Taking that cup of salt, putting it in a pond of water is called selflessness. And to that selfless one, only jnana yoga will happen, not otherwise. And so therefore, Bhagavan Krishna stresses this point. Now, very interestingly, Bhagavan Krishna says, Arjuna, now you must be wondering how this harmony works. I've been talking about harmony, cycle of creation, cosmic vision. You must be wondering how it works. So Lord Krishna says, let me tell you exactly how it works. Now these portions are very, very beautiful portions of the Bhagavad Gita. And they're so applicable in every person's life. So let's read. We'll read now 14 and 15. Okay. Annad bhavanti bhutani.
Annat bhavanti bhutani.
Parjanyad anna sambhavaha.
Parjanyat anna sambhavaha.
Yajnat bhavati parjanyaha.
Yajnat bhavati parjanyaha.
Yajnah karma samudbhavaha.
Yajnah karma samudbhavaha.
Karma brahmodbhavam vidhi.
Karma brahmodbhavam vidhi.
Brahmakshara samudbhavam.
Brahmachara samudbhavam.
Tasmat sarvagatam brahma.
Tasmat sarvagadam brahma.
Nityam yagne pratishtitam.
Nityam yajne pratishtitam.
Annad bhavanti bhutani. Parjanyadanna sambhavaha. Yajnat bhavati parjanyaha. Yajnah karma samudbhavaha. Karma brahmodbhavam vidhi. Brahmakshara samudbhavam. Tasmat sarvagatam brahma. Nityam yagne pratishtitam. So what is this cycle? What is this harmony? So here it says, Annad bhavanti. Annad. Annad means from food. Bhavanti. From food comes bhutani. From food comes all beings. Parjanyat. From rain, anna sambhavaha, comes the production of food. Yagnyat. From sacrifice, bhavati, arises parjanyaha, rain, and yagnyaha, karma samudbhavaha. And sacrifice is born of action. Karma. Karma, action. Brahmodbhavam is arisen from Brahman. Here actually we'll take the meaning of Veda and I'll explain why. Vidhi, no. Brahma kshara samudbhavam, and that Brahma has arisen from that akshara, that imperishable Brahman. Tasmat, therefore, sarvagatam Brahma, that Brahma is all pervading, nityam, ever pervading, yagne pratishtitam, is established in sacrifice. That all pervading Brahma is established in sacrifice. So from food comes forth beings. From rain, food is produced. From sacrifice arises rain, and sacrifice is born of action. Know you that action comes from Brahma, the creator, and Brahma comes from the imperishable. Therefore, the all-pervading Brahman ever rests in sacrifice. So beautiful. Okay, so now imagine this, and probably next week I'll create a cycle for all of you. This week was a little crazy, but next week I meant to create some visuals because it'll be easier to understand this. But for now, you can understand this way. The first part, you take body, okay? Body. So how does this body come forth? This body comes from annam, or food, right? What makes this body? Food. We eat more food, it gets fat. We eat less food, we get thin. So the body comes from food. But where does food come from? Food comes from rain, right? So even if farmers, they're planting certain crops and everything, how do the crops grow? The crops grow only when there's rain. But where does rain come from? Rain comes from yajna. Rain comes from yajna, the spirit of sacrifice. And why the spirit of sacrifice? See, rain signifies prosperity. Rain signifies prosperity in the nation, right? In the nation, in the country, in the world. How does prosperity come? See, only when there's prosperity, then there's food. There's food, there's clothing, there's shelter, right? This is something we see in the world. So how does this prosperity come? It comes from the spirit of sacrifice, of yajna. When all of us are contributing to this wheel, all of us are doing our part, then prosperity will come. If you just take a household, if everyone's doing their part, everybody's giving, then that household will prosper. In a kingdom or a country where everyone's doing their part, that will prosper. So that's why we, when we take up certain projects, we say this is yajna. This is yajna because everyone does their part. So yajna means that sacrifice. When that sacrifice happens and everyone contributes, then only prosperity happens. Prosperity, food, nourishment, and then body. Now, what makes this sacrifice, or where is this sacrifice born from? It's born from action. So, as I said, what is that sacrifice based on? It's based on those unique actions. We have to see two things. I take up this class with the high schoolers, 12th graders. And in our Bhagavad Gita, when you extract this portion on Swadhyaya, it essentially says, how do you find your life's work? How do you find what you're meant to do in this world? It just boils down to two questions. And the two questions are, what is my Swadharma? What is my innate ability or capacity? Something that comes so natural to me and so effortless that I can just give. I can just give. What is my Swadharma? And two is, in what way can I best serve the world? So in what way? I have my Swadharma, but in what way can I utilize it to serve the world best? This is called the karma. This is the kind of karma that we take up, answering these two questions. For some, it may be being an artist. For some, it may be reaching out to the community, service. For some, it may be politics, business. For everybody, it varies. And nobody is the judge. It depends on our temperament. So sacrifice is from that karma, that type of action that fits our aptitude and temperament, that type of action which will enable us to serve the world in the best way. And now, where is that action or karma born from? That's born from the Veda. So when we say this word Brahma, Brahma can mean Brahma, Prajapati, the creator. Brahma can mean Veda. Brahma can mean Brahman. So we have to see in which context it comes. So here we can take the context of Veda. We can also take the context of Brahma, Prajapati, the creator. Both are fine. So when we say that action comes from Veda, what we mean is we have a whole system of knowledge that tells us what kind of actions we should perform, right? And we saw this in this chapter, Niyatam Kuru Karmatvam. I'll just tell you, it's verse number 8. So Veda, it comes from our scriptures. The knowledge of how to perform action, what to perform, when to perform, that comes from Veda, or scriptures. Or you can say that comes from Brahma, Prajapati. It said, Yasya Nishvasitam Veda. To Brahma, the Vedas are his breath, means they effortlessly come. All knowledge is from God only. I don't think we discovered anything new. We didn't. Everything's already existing. All people are doing are discovering it. That's why it's called discover. They're just removing the cover. That's all. All knowledge is already there. It's already there. Like gravity is already there. Then all you do is remove the cover and you say, that's called gravity. Not that anybody invented it. Mathematics is already there. But the whole universe is so mathematical. It's already there. Science is already there. Language is already there. So everything is from Brahma, everything is from the Vedas. And all of this is from Brahman. All of this is from that imperishable Brahman. So that Brahman, that imperishable Brahman, is the root of everything. Everything goes to that ultimate reality. So now let us see the cycle like this, and then let us see it like this, okay? So first we take body. Body, beings are from food. Food is from rain. Rain is from sacrifice. Rain symbolizes prosperity. Prosperity comes from sacrifice. Sacrifice is based on a certain kind of action that we do, and the actions are born from the Veda or Brahmaji, and that is from the imperishable Akshara Brahman. And so you take it this way, from Brahman, we have the Veda or Brahma. Then after the Veda or Brahma, we have Karma, then Yajna. Then after Yajna, we have prosperity or rain, then food, and then beings. So it goes like this, and then again it goes back like this. And this is how the whole system works. So if anybody at one point cuts off, then things stop. So either we don't have the spirit of Yajna, prosperity will stop. Prosperity stops, food, supply, drink, nourishment, clothing, that will stop. That stops, people will die. So any place we cut, all of these things will get affected. We cut down on karma, means we're confused about karma. We don't know what to do. We don't know in what way we can serve the world. Then it will hamper the prosperity. And again, all of those effects will come. So therefore, then you go back. Then what should we do? Study the scriptures. Study the scriptures so that all of these things make sense and we do contribute and we do understand our place in this world. And this is that cycle. And it says here, Tasmat Sarvagatam Brahma. So even if that Brahma is Sarvagatam, it's all pervading, that Brahma is all pervading, Nityam Yajna Pratishtitam. If we want to feel the presence of God, even if God is all pervading, if we want to feel the presence of God, where can I feel God? Here and now. Yajna Pratishtitam. We can feel God in Yajna. Whenever people come together in the spirit of sacrifice and service, to offer their work as worship to a higher altar, and whatever results they get, accept it and share it with others, that's called God. That is called God. That is God alive. And it's the most beautiful thing. So even if God is all pervading, expressing everywhere, we can really feel God in the spirit of Yajna. So if we want to feel God, we all know what to do. Engage in Yajna. Engage in Yajna. Right? Today time passed by so fast that I'll just summarize in few words and then we'll close. I'll make an announcement and we'll close. So today we saw very beautiful verses about, people who are thieves, stena, people who are stena, people who don't want to, they don't even do anything and then they don't want to even give back anything because such notions occur. Why should I do it? Is it my responsibility? It won't make a difference anyway. And they're afraid to let go. These people, then they won't feel the benefit of that whole Yajna spirit. And those who don't let go, that will be taken away from them. That wealth, that talent, everything will be taken away from them. Because if you don't use it, you will lose it. That's for sure. And there are those also who perform the yajna, are in the cycle, but whatever results they get, they hoard. And it's as though they eat sin. And they eat sin because that is selfishness, selfish action. But those who engage in yajna and reap the results and give it back, they are yajna shishtashinaha. They are free from sins because they attain what is called selflessness. Selflessness is nothing but purity of mind, expanding the mind, so that one can eventually transcend the ego. And all of this, to have this vision of selflessness, all of this is necessary to participate in this cosmic cycle that we have, that goes from the beings to God, from God to the beings. So in all times, in all places, we're connected to God. God's connected to us. And everything we do actually will go to God some way or the other. Mm-hmm. All right, so let's say the closing prayer. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om. Okay,